Hello everyone and welcome. I will be showing you today a Mellee Ailment build. Alright, so let's get right into it. Let's go over the tree. So I start mainly the main stats on this guy would be critical hit damage, critical strikes, and ailments, chance to place ailments on your targets. So let's begin from here. Here we got melee weapon damage and critical hit damage, which both scales my weapon damage and my critical hit damage. Weapon damage and critical hit damage here again. 15 attack damage, 10% critical hit damage, 15% critical hit damage, and this is a pretty big no for crit chance, so it gives you 50% crit chance score. And we got plus 15% attack damage and 10% critical hit damage. And we also grabbed the 25 ferocity on this corner. Base stats are always stronger than percent. So if you're near any base stat on your tree or on your gear or wherever, will make your character stronger rather than grabbing some type of percentage sign, because the percentage only scales what's already there, which is your base. So if I were to grab this would have probably given me, I don't know, about 3% extra. Well, this is giving me around 6-7% extra. And we come up here for attack speed score and some force shield. Critical chance score, critical chance score, and critical chance score. And another big note here, which gives me 150% critical hit damage, but reduces every other damage that is non-criticals. So since we're spec'd into critical strikes pretty much, critical hit damage, this is a pretty big note. Excuse me. Then we come over to this side and we grab for the 20 melee weapon damage. We do not benefit from the projectile damage. That only applies to bows, pistols, or any type of projectile skills like even spells like fireball and arctic ice. We come up here for more melee weapon damage, attack damage, and critical hit chance score. Attack damage scales anything that's attack base. So it could be your weapons or any skills that are related to attacking. We come up here for more attack damage and critical chance score, and then we grab the 25 agility in this corner. We shoot up here for the 20% melee weapon damage and 5% attack damage. We come over here for the attack speed score and for 4% life leech on bleeding targets, and I'll explain why I have this in a bit. 15% attack damage here and another 15% attack damage there. We got 10% to maximum health and plus 35% health regeneration here, but then we shoot up this way for more ferocity and then come up here so that we can get life leech from all damage types that we're dealing. Doesn't matter where it comes from, you will get 2% global life leech. And we'll shoot over to this side. This is where you spec into your ailment. So here we have 10% status ailment chance score. And then we come down here for 50% chance to multiply the numbers of ailment stacks applied by 2. Then we got 25% chance to multiply the numbers of ailment stack applied by 0, and another 25% chance. We come over here for some wisdom. Wisdom is the only stat that helps you apply ailments. So the higher your wisdom, the higher the chance or the better you will be at applying ailments. We come over here for adding another element. So when, let's say when I attack with my weapon, it will always now apply an additional element rather than just applying one at a time. I can apply two different types of element at a time. Then we come over here for status element resistance score and to all resistance score. Now between this and this is gonna allow me to apply more elements you know, per hit pretty much. So these two nodes are very important if you want to be applying elements to your target. You also have this node over here which allows you to apply +2 element stacks as well to your target, but you have minus 30% damage to everything that's a non-damage over time. Damage over time elements will be like Ren, which is bleeding, Toxic, which is poison, Fire, which burns your target, and Lightning, which shocks your target. Shocks is another overtime damaging element. So these 4 elements do damage over time. So this allows you to apply, but it reduces damage that is non-over time. Also, they will be the only type of element you will be able to apply if you grab this node. So unless you're trying to spec your character into damage over time type of elements, then maybe this node may work for you. If you're not trying to just do damage over time, you want to apply different types of element, this will not be the node for you. This node may also work well if you're doing damage over time, because any critical damage you deal to your target when you apply the element, that element will deal critical damage as well for the time that it's on your target. Then we travel up to this side. We get some material damage here and some critical chance score. Material damage only scales physical, poison, and rend. So poison and rend both have an element which is bleeding. Poison is under toxic. So Ren is bleeding, toxic is poison. So it'll scale all 3 of them, and it'll scale physical damage as well. Physical damage can have a chance to stun the enemies. That's the element for physical. Then we come over here for some more agility. We travel over here for health and force shield. But this is the node I wanted to get into, which gives me 20% critical hit damage. Also gives me 10% attack damage. We also come over here so that when we block, we'll be able to apply weakness stacks on our targets whenever we block per target. So they can, each of them have their own counters, you can say. So when they're attacking you per mob, if you block their attacks, then you will place weakness stacks on them, which is pretty helpful because weakness stacks reduce how hard they hit you and also increase the damage they receive from you, from any type, from any damage you deal to them. It doesn't matter what source damage it is. And this ferocity. So these 3 are the nodes why I came to this side. And I think that's pretty much it for the tree. So this is the tree I've made for Mellee Ailment build. Alright, so let's go over the attributes here. Now, I believe I spent all my points here. I haven't played this character in a little while. Let me see something. So I have toughness. Okay, so yeah, I've spent about 75% or nearly 80% of my points in wisdom, and then the rest I put them in ferocity. Okay, so ferocity allows for either spells or attack damage to have a higher chance to crit. And since this build is based around crits and ailments, I need ferocity. So right now I have 26.9% for my spells and crit to land as a critical strike. And wisdom, this is the stat you're going to need to be able to be effective at placing ailments in your target. If you do not spec into wisdom, you will not be effective at placing ailments on your target. So this is a very important attribute if you're gonna do any type of ailment build. Also, what I learned, ailment builds are very like needy, so you have to spend a lot of either passive tree points or attribute points into your wisdom or ailments in general to be effective at placing ailments. My total bonus damage is at 93.7%. If we go over the detailed attributes, this is how my combat looks like. So combat only applies to your weapons. So every time I hit with my sword, this is what will be applying to them. So this is the damage that comes from my sword. This is the average damage that my sword will do, including my attack speed and my critical damage and critical chance. So I have 26.9% to crit, and I have 395% critical damage. So the average damage that pulls out of here gets multiplied by 3.95%, which gives me an average damage of 5,358 on a weapon hit. Now this is considering how many times I'm attacking in 1 second. So here I have 21.9% attack speed. So basically every 10% you get 1 extra shot per second. So I'll be hitting my targets with my sword 2 times in 1 second. So considering my attack speed, my damage, my crit damage and chance, attacking 2 times in 1 second is gonna give me an average damage of that. If you only attack 1 time in 1 second, this number gets cut in half. So you need to be attacking the amount of times that your attack speed is showing for you to deal the full amount of damage. If you're not attacking, you're not doing your full amount of damage. Also, life leech or spell leech, it ticks every second. So the health regeneration frequency here is 1 second. So your life leech and your health regeneration, they will both tick together every 1 second. So let's say if you're not doing damage within that 1 second, okay, you're not applying life leech whatsoever. So every second that ticks is important for you to be applying damage to your target if you want to rely on healing your life through life leech. So you must be doing damage every second if you want to keep applying life leech. Or if you do not do any damage, your life leech will not be applied when the second comes in. Okay, ailments. I almost forgot. So this is the ailments tab. So each ailment, for what I read here, can be stacked up to 10 times. So you can stack each ailment up to 10 times. Okay, so yes, I do have a lot of damage. See, so physical can stun, toxic can poison, frost can freeze, lightning can place shock, aether can place stasis, sacred can place weakness stacks, shadow propagates all ailments to nearby enemies. So whatever elements I put on my target, shadow will be able to propagate these elements around to jump them to nearby targets. Now, considering that you can place these, okay, 10 times each, my opinion is that it's good to maybe focus on 2, maybe 3 different elements when you're doing an element build. Why? Because if you have all these elements, you're not and you're trying to get full stacks. Maybe on a boss you might be able to. It all depends if you're hitting them enough times, okay. But they all have their timer counters, so they only last so long each stack. So it's hard to place a lot of these elements to its maximum stacks. So it's good to focus on maybe 2 or 3 of them to be pretty effective at putting elements on your target. Now, doesn't mean you should not maybe add extra ones. It's still good. Just try to hit your targets um, very often so that you can keep applying your elements to them and keep stacking them up. Because let's say poison and bleed and burn and shock, so you can apply them up to 10 times. If you don't apply its full stacks, which is 10, then you're not going to do the full damage that you are going to be able to pull out of these type of damaging elements. Alright, so let me go over the element status tab here. So you can apply, as it says here, the maximum numbers of stacks you can pile up on a unique target for each distinct status element. Most of the status elements increase in power the more stacks you put on the same target. And they all have their independent stack counter. So you can stack independently per unique, per single mob, each of these if you're able to stack them. If you have too many of them and you're not attacking fast enough or hitting them fast enough, you're not going to be able to attack them. So why you're not going to be able to place them? So if you see here, you got the poison duration lasts 5 seconds. So for one stack is 5 seconds. After the 5 seconds is over, that first stack you applied to them will disappear. Here you got 2.5 seconds, so it's even shorter with the bleed. Here you got 3 seconds for the burn. Here you got 4 seconds for shock. So if you're not applying your maximum stacks, they will be going away little by little. For damage here, so let's say the poison does 18 damage per stack. So that's what this means. This front number shows you how much each stack does. So my poison damage, one stack does 18 damage. At its full stacks, it'll do 180 damage per second every time it ticks. So this is how much one stack does. This is how much damage having a full stacks on them. And it applies to the rest of them. Also, you got poison rate. So here, every 0.9 seconds, your poison will damage your target. So this is almost every 1 second your poison will hit. So considering that is 0.9 seconds, technically speaking, if the duration is 5 seconds per stack, you will only be hitting them 5 times, because 0.9 doesn't give you enough to hit them 6 times. So you will hit them with poison 5 times before that one stack goes away. At least the first stack that you have applied goes away. And it works the same for the rest of them. So the bleed rate will be every 0.5 seconds. So they will receive damage twice in 1 second with bleed. Burn rate will be 0.6 seconds. So every, what is it? Every 4, every 5. And the thing is that it doesn't last for that long. So you will hit them every 0.6 seconds. That's about it. And so yeah, they all have their own timer counters on them for the time it takes and the duration of them. 31.3% to place any of these elements. I have on all of them. Well, this one is 36.4, and that's because I spec'd into it a little bit. Because I have this, so I'm bleeding. I leech 4% life on bleeding targets, so it stacks with this as well. So that's 2%, and then I got 4% here, so that's 6%, but that only applies if my target is bleeding. Where were we? The skills here. All right, so, and then I have these rings which give me plus 1% global life leech. Now it's not showing here the life leech, so it only shows 4%. Why? Because it's showing the two global percent from the tree, and it's showing these two rings. But I also have the 4% life leech from bleeding targets. It's not showing here because it only applies when the target is bleeding. So it's only showing me these two rings, which give me 1% of global life leech each ring, plus the 2% I got from the tree. So that is why I grabbed that node, because I use bleeding edge to constantly keep them bleeding so I can leech from them. And that's pretty much it for the Ailment tab. If you hover over any of these stats, as you see, there's a tooltip if you need more information to try and understand them. And it works the same for all of the rest of the stats that are in here. So if you want to understand a little bit more what each of them do, then just hover your mouse clicker over them, and it'll give you a tooltip on it. Alright, so that was my attributes page. Let's go over my gear here. So most of my gear have toughness on it, for the simple fact that since I'm gonna be up close in a combat with them, I want to have enough resistances and life, so I don't get one-shotted every single time. So it's a combination of some wisdom and toughness. So my shoulder here is wisdom. Let me see, toughness, wisdom here. And I think that's about it. I think I just have two items for wisdom, and then the rest is toughness, so I can have some more life and resistances. So that's what I look for mainly in this character for attributes, is toughness and just 2 items with wisdom to help me with my ailments. For open sockets, I socketed them with more life, so I can be a little bit more tough. For my necklace, I have the brooch. So the reason I have this brooch is because it gives me agility. Agility gives you more attack speed, and it also gives you a chance to dodge. Okay, I didn't show you my dodge. So my dodge chance right now is, where are you? Right here. So my dodge chance is 18%, which is not very high, but it's still, I still get some dodge. Also, my block is 25% and my block efficiency is 20%. So the way block works is that I got 25% chance of blocking an incoming attack. Doesn't matter what type of damage it is. And block efficiency, what it does, when you block, you will reduce the damage you take by whatever percentage you have here. So every time I block, the damage gets reduced by 20%. When you block, you don't 100% negate the damage that you block. You only reduce the damage that you're going to take. That's what block does. So having a combination of block and dodge, as well as life leech, all together can help you survive better. So that's how block works. All right, so going back to this, and it also gives me stamina regeneration speed. Now, I'm not focused. This build is not surrounded by stamina, which are these points here. So stamina, what it does, it allows you to jump around like that. But I also, this Wings of Ishmir, it's I grabbed this node here, which no longer has a cooldown, but cost 1 stamina point to be used. So I use it because it helps me survive a little bit more, and I can travel around the map some more. So Winds of Ishmir does that. you'll be able to hop around. But it uses your stamina. So having that necklace with stamina regeneration speed, it'll help this stamina points regen even faster. Also, Bulwark of Dawn, where is it? Right here. I expect it to increase stamina regeneration whenever I have Bulwark of Dawn. So as I cast Bulwark of Dawn, I can be able to hop around or tumble around a little more often because it helps regen the stamina points between Bulwark of Dawn and that necklace. There are more ways to reduce to increase the regeneration rate for these nodes, but I'm not spec into it so much. I just wanted just to be able to hop around some more and be able to move around the map a little bit better, and also because I converted the damage that Wings of Ishmir does into sacred damage, and sacred damage applies weakness onto your target. So not only every time I block from my tree right here, every time I block, I apply 2 weakness stacks upon blocking an attack. Every time I do Wings of Ishmir and I hit them, I also apply weakness stacks. So it helps with me applying weakness stacks. My weapon right here, that jewel, that gem, it also does sacred damage. So every time I attack with my weapon, I'm also having a chance to apply weakness stacks. So I got 3 forms of 3 ways to apply weakness stacks. Also, I don't know, did I grab it? No, I didn't grab it here. Also, Bulwark of Dawn, if you grab this node right here, grants sacred damage to attacks while standing in the area. So when you cast it, since it follows me, if I would have had that node, it would have added sacred damage to all of my damage. So Bleeding Edge, and Winds of Ishmir, and thus giving me a higher chance to apply weakness stacks on my target. Now for rings, I have 7 Sisters pack because it gives me global life leech, and it also gives me a lot of life, and it gives me wisdom, which is needed for applying ailments. It also gives me some health regeneration and rage regeneration on kill. So it's very important that you can try to regenerate rage as often as possible so that you can keep releasing Bleeding Edge and always heal yourself. So keeping your rage up is very important. Wings of Ishmir gives rage. Tracker's Reach gives rage. Sovereign Shout gives rage. Attacking with your weapons gives rage. And I get more rage regen with these rings. For my weapon, I have a 3 socket legendary, which I socket them with Aether damage, Sacred damage, Shadow damage. Aether damage will slow your enemy's actions down. It's a really powerful ailment. So that means your enemies will attack slower and will move slower, giving you a better chance to react to their attacks or see their attacks coming before they hit you. Sacred damage, like I'd explained, it allows you to deal that sacred damage and apply weakness stacks on your target. And shadow damage helps you propagate your ailments around to your target. So as an ailment build, it's important that you can try and spread your ailments around if you're fighting packs of mobs. So shadow damage is the only ailment that can help you do that. So if we go to the ailments page right down here, shaded damage, which is shadow. Shaded is the ailment of shadow damage. Your ability, and it says your ability to use shaded ailment effectively. Shaded may spread the target's status ailment to its nearby allies. Expected the shaded itself. Shaded can be stacked up to its maximum ailment stacks number. Okay, so I got a 31% chance of placing shaded. The efficiency is 20 to 65%. So efficiency says the chance per stack to spread a status element stack each time the shaded element ticks. So this is pretty much the power of it. So whenever it ticks, whenever there's they have shaded on them, okay, this percentage is pretty much the value that is telling that it's gonna give you the chance to keep spreading that element around. So that's why it's important to try and stack as many of these things as you can. The shaded rate, so every 1 second it will tick. Shaded radius, so it has a 4 meter radius. So anything within 4 meters, okay, when it ticks and it spreads, and it'll spread anything between 4 meter radius. Sorry. And shaded propagation will be 1 stack per time per tick. Okay, so every time it stick, it will only propagate 1 at a time. And the stack itself, shaded stack, lasts for 5 seconds. And so that's my weapon setup there. For shield, before previously I put the shield that had two one-handers, and I had both of them socketed with another 3 base damage dealing gems. Gives you more damage, but you lose out on the block chance from this. Also, the Quintet of Sundowns. This is, to my opinion, one of the best shields. I've made a build before. Actually, I have 2 other tanks that I made before Content Patch 1, and they both have this shield. It's just really hard to get rid of the attributes this shield gives you. Okay, so it gives you 255 force shield, 25% block chance, 20% block efficiency. But this is where it becomes powerful. It gives you plus 25 to all attributes. That is really powerful right there. Okay, that means it gives you plus 25 to all of these right here. Okay, so it increases the chance of me placing stacks on my enemies, my attack speed score, my chance to dodge, my health, my resistances, my health regeneration, my critical strikes or spells. Critical strikes, I don't really have spells. This is my only spell. And this Bulwark of Dawn could only be, since this is considered a spell, a sacred spell, it could only be used by using this shield. So if you don't have this shield, as you see at the bottom of the attributes there, it says allows the bearer to cast sacred spells. So this is the only shield that will allow you to cast a sacred type of spell. And this is the only sacred spell in the game at the moment. So if you don't have this shield, you don't get this spell unless you're wearing a catalyst or a staff. But this build doesn't require a staff, obviously. And wearing a catalyst will give me more bonuses, but catalysts usually have bonuses towards mages because it gives you like added damages to spells. And this is the only spell I have. Alright, so, and that's the gearing on this character. Now, let me go over the last step here, which is the skills. So, I have Wings of Ishmir because it helps me initiate fights. It also stuns my targets on impact. It also, since I converted the damage to sacred damage, it helps me apply weakness stacks on my targets. And no longer has a cooldown, so I use my stamina points, thus allowing me to bypass the cooldown, which is a 10-second cooldown, and use it as long as I have stamina up. The second skill I have here is Tracker's Reach. So normally when I jump in with Wings of Ishmir, I would use Tracker's Reach to reel everybody in. The modifiers here are foes affected by the hook are stunned. So this is another chance to stun. Now, for stuns, when you stun a target one time, you can't stun them again. You can't stun lock your enemies forever. The game does not allow you to do that. So you stun them one time, you cannot stun them for a few seconds after that first stun. Okay, but I still have stun because it helps. It gives me another layer, another defensive mechanic layer, you can say. So whenever they don't get stunned by Wings of Ishmir, which has 100% chance to stun, if you see there on the tooltip. So Wings of Ishmir can even stun bosses. Not all the time, but I see about 90 to 95% of the time it will stun a boss. So it's a pretty powerful skill. And I will stun whenever I reel them all in. So I gain rage for each enemy hit by the ability. Like I was saying earlier, you need to keep this rage bar filled as much as possible so that you can keep releasing Bleeding Edge. Reduces the cooldown, so I'll be able to hook my enemies more often. And pulls enemies from all directions. That means that instead of being just like a line going forward to reel one target in, well, I go as an area around me and attract everything that's near me. And that's that for Tracker's Reach. Then on the third one we have Sovereign Shout. Sovereign Shout, the skill modifiers I have in it will be grant bonus to all resistances per enemy hit by shout. So it'll make me more resistance to all types of damage. I do not have Retaliate on this guy, so these resistances will not buff my damage. But it still makes me more resistance to all damage. Enemies hit by shout gain a stack of weakness. So this is another way to weaken. So I have my weapon that weakens them. I have Wings of Ishmir, and I have shout. Whenever I shout, I place a weakness stacks on them. And like I mentioned, weakness is very good because it does two things. It makes them weaker. Okay, they hit you like they don't hit you as hard. It literally makes them their attacks weaker or spells, and they take more damage from all damage sources. Increase the duration of the buff granted by the skill. And the last one is increases the effectiveness of all buffs granted by the skill. So that's the setup for Sovereign Shout. Then here we have Bulwark of Dawn. The skill modifiers will be increased duration, so I can stay up for longer. Grant bonus to all resistances while inside the area. And since I have this node, which Bulwark of Dawn follows me wherever I walk, I will always have this on as long as I have Bulwark of Dawn up. Standing in the healing area increases stamina regeneration. So this is the other node that helps me maintain my stamina regen up, so I can be able to use Wings of Ishmir more often, or maybe rolling around more often. And the healing area follows the player it was cast on. So since I usually cast it on myself, wherever I walk, it will stay with me. Bleeding Edge. Alright, so this is your damage dealing, plus this is the big one that applies ailments to your enemies. Okay, and this is the one I found the easiest to play with to apply stacks of ailments to your enemy. Why? Because it does an area of effect. Okay, so the setup for skill modifiers I have on here is increased rotation speed. So instead of rotating and hitting every 1 second, now it can rotate faster and hit about 2 times per second. Okay, so that increases the chance of me placing stacks on my ailments. If you notice here on the skill detail, this is this is pretty much like the type of damage I do. The fire rate, you know, is the details. So I do shadow, sacred, aether, lightning, frost, toxic, rend, and physical damage, and giving me a chance to also place elements of all these damage types. It does not tell me here, but it does it. It only shows a bleed chance of 39.6% and a stasis chance of 31.3. But it also has a chance of doing all of the other ones. But these will be the higher chances, obviously. So whenever I'm using bleeding edge, these are being applied more often in the target than these are. But I'm still applying some of these. It's very lower chance, but I'm still applying them. So since I increase the speed rotation, I'm hitting them 2 times in 1 second, increasing the chances of me applying elements, since I'm also expecting to increasing the numbers I apply to them, the numbers of elements I'm applying to them. So I'm pretty much applying 3 plus elements per hit, and even with my sword. So when I hit with my sword, I'm applying 3 plus elements per hit. Right here. I also grabbed increased area of effect, so it can surround me. You know, has a bigger area of effect rather than a smaller one. I can hit more mobs that are around me. Keeps the axe spinning for a short duration. Very important. You gotta have this, because instead of it spinning one time and going away, it stays spinning for about I think it's about 3 seconds or so. And so giving you more chances to place elements on the target. And I have damage dealt by this ability also gives life leech. So this is another form of me receiving life leech. So like I was explaining earlier, I have this, which gives me 2%, right? Then I have the rings, which both together give me 2%. So it equals to a total of where are you? Right here. So it equals a total of 4%, right? Now I have this note that gives me plus 4% life leech when the target is bleeding. And since I always have a high chance of making the target bleed, I will always be leeching 4% from them, as long as I'm casting bleeding edge. And bleeding edge now has damage dealt by this gives life leech, so it also increases your life leech. So this character has a lot of life leech. And that is all of the gear, tree, the setup I have on this character. I'll go in and I'll kill a few mobs for you guys so you can see the build in action a little bit. So normally what I do is I cast Bulwark of Dawn, I go in, and I hold my left click mouse and my right click mouse, because since I have retaliator, since I have bleeding edge on my right click mouse, and my basic attack is on my left click mouse, what I do is I hold them both down when I'm attacking. I just gotta make sure I'm trying to click on a monster. And as I'm building rage, since I'm holding down this button, he will release bleeding edge as there's enough rage. So all I gotta do is hold the 2 buttons down, make sure I'm constantly using my skills here to build up rage. He's also building up rage every time he hits with his weapons. Okay, so I try to maintain Bulwark of Dawn up as much as possible. Okay. And then I do my rotation. So basically my rotation will be first Bulwark of Dawn, always to keep it up. Initiate the fight. When I initiate the fight, I reel them in with Tracker's Reach, as I'm right clicking and left clicking at the same time. And then the last one will be Shout. Okay, so Bulwark of Dawn, jump in, Tracker's Reach, and then Shout, while right clicking and while holding right click and left click. And that's pretty much the rotation I use for this guy. It's pretty simple. Just try to maintain your rage, because your rage helps you stay healing because of bleeding edge. And this guy is actually pretty safe. Just when you're playing in higher tiers, I pushed it all the way to like the second level. I haven't played much with him, but since I've been farming, I have not been trying to like push hard with him. But I've usually pushed it to like the second level in +5, and then go back to town because I need to sell stuff. But pretty sure he can be pushed a little bit farther than that as a solo player. Just need to be careful facing bosses because you still can get one shot. Even with all these defensive mechanics. If you notice him, he's doing his attacks a lot slower. You see how he's moving a lot slower, attacking? That's what stasis does. That's why I say stasis is a very powerful ailment, because it slows the actions. That's what it is. It slows the enemy's actions down. So they attack slower, they move slower, everything is slow for them. And that's a pretty good defensive mechanic because it allows you to react to the monsters. It allows you to keep them slowed down, so if you need to back away or something like that, you don't have to worry about, let's say, like the sadistic thug chasing you across the map at full speed because he's faster than you or anything like that. Nope. As long as you place some stasis stacks on him, you will be okay. And the loot drop is like pretty good right now. What's going on here? It's good news. Oh, let me grab this because I need to make some more money. I gotta unlock the last tab on my bags, my stash. Alright, so this is the boss. You're gonna see once you play some stacks how easy it is to fight these guys. Any boss. It's not just this guy. Because you see how slow his moves are. It gives you more than enough time. That move he just did right there, that's a 1 KO shot. It technically gives me like 3 seconds to react to that shot. Normally you don't get 3 seconds. You get like a second or two to react to that. But considering that I have stasis and I'm slowing my enemies down, I can react to everything they're doing. And so this is my Mellee Ailment guy. Hope you guys enjoy. If you like it, please follow, subscribe. I have a Twitch channel. If you have any more questions, you can check me out over there. I will post a link in the description. If you have any questions, you can also ask in the description. I mean, in the You can leave a comment. I reply to all the comments. And hope you enjoy. Hope you can make something better. If you make something better, please share it. I would love to see it. Thank you and have a great day.